The junior senator from Florida.
I rise today to discuss another issue in the Democrats' massive COVID spending bill that we need to fix. My Democrat colleagues want to keep spending into oblivion, taking our national debt to $30 trillion. Madam President, this would be bad enough on its own, but tucked into the bloated spending package were new tax hikes on self-employed individuals. President Biden and the Democrats didn't talk about it, and they certainly aren't talking about it as they travel the nation to brag about their bad bill. Democrats are quietly raising taxes, hoping the American people don't notice. The $1.9 trillion so-called American Rescue Plan Act, of which less than 10% went to actually help fight COVID, and 1% to vaccines, had several tax increases and burdensome reporting requirements, including one that significantly impacts gig workers, those who have been severely impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. Starting in 2022, this bill requires many contractors with gig economy companies like Uber, DoorDash, Airbnb, and Lyft to file 1099 forms when they previously would not have. The new requirement dramatically lowers the annual 1099 reporting threshold from 20,000 and 200 transactions to just $600 and eliminates the transaction minimum. In late February, before the Democrats rushed their spending bill through Congress, on a purely partisan basis, a coalition of groups wrote to Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer asking that this onerous new provision, which has nothing to do with addressing the coronavirus crisis, be removed or at least reconsidered. The letter was signed by groups such as the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Council, the National Asian American Chamber of Commerce, National Association for the Self-Employed, United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the National Association of Women Business Owners. Madam President, after receiving such a letter, one would think that Democrats would want to reconsider. Raising taxes and reporting requirements in the midst of a pandemic? This is never good policy, but I can't think of any worse timing. Of course, Democrats kept the provision buried deep within the bill, hoping the American public wouldn't notice. The Democrats' new reporting requirements are effectively a tax hike and will ultimately hurt low and middle-income contractors, the self-employed, and freelancers, many of which have been devastated by the pandemic, while federal and state governments will collect billions more in income tax revenue. Madam President, my Democrat colleagues want the American public to believe this is about catching tax cheats. And to be clear, any attempt to evade taxes and to defraud the public by not following the law should be condemned, and Congress should appropriately address it. However, a massive new reporting requirement on gig workers, many just trying to make ends meet in the midst of this pandemic, is not about catching tax fraud. It's about punishing the self-employed and raising revenues for the Democrats' massive spending plans. It wasn't that long ago that President Biden promised that he wouldn't raise taxes on anyone making under $400,000. Obviously, that was not true. But this isn't the first time Democrats have tried to quietly increase taxes and saddle the self-employed with new requirements like this. They did it with Obamacare, when they required businesses to send 1099 forms for all purchases of goods and services over $600 annually. They quickly learned how unpopular and harmful this provision was, and they quickly repealed it. The Obama administration even praised the repeal as a big win for the self-employed. I guess some never learn. What I'm proposing is very simple. It's what the Democrats supported in 2011 when they repealed this bad tax increase in Obamacare. Today, I want to remove this new reporting requirement and simply reinstate the previous law back into U.S. code. Increasing reporting requirements on our gig workers will create new and unexpected challenges for independent, self-employed workers and entrepreneurs who are already facing an incredible burden created by the coronavirus. Increasing costs and regulations on already struggling Americans is wrong, and I hope all my colleagues will join me today and repeal this bad policy. Madam President, as if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of Senate 948, introduced earlier today. I further ask that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Reserving the right to object, Madam President.
The senior senator from Oregon.
Madam President, the senator from Florida claims to be looking out for gig workers and freelancers. the reality is very different. What is in the bill, which the senator from Florida apparently opposes, is a way to make sure that these workers can get the information they need to help meet their existing tax obligations. And without this information, for example, workers may lose out on benefits that would help them pay rent and buy groceries. They could inadvertently lose out on important tax benefits like the Earned Income Tax Credit. The Rescue Plan, of course, expands the Earned Income Tax Credit. We want to make sure that every eligible worker could get that financial help. And finally, without reporting, workers might jeopardize the size of their future Social Security benefits, putting their retirement security at risk. So, what the senator from Florida is up to here would deprive American entrepreneurs of the information they need to keep business records, comply with tax requirements, claim important federal benefits. For these reasons, I strongly object to this request for unanimous consent, and I yield the floor.
Objection is heard.
Madam President?
The junior senator from Florida.
Okay, that sounded good, but this is clearly a tax increase. It's a massive tax increase, and it's a massive new reporting requirement on already struggling Americans. Our focus ought to be on helping support American workers, especially these gig employee workers that have been hurt so badly. I'm disappointed my colleague wants to increase costs and regulations on American families. What's strange is that my colleague from Oregon voted to repeal this bad provision when Democrats added to Obamacare. So what's crazy is, why is he okay today with raising taxes on the American people now? This is all part of the Democrats' tax and spend agenda, and it's just the beginning. Let's remember, with the last spending bill that Democrats passed, we will have $30 trillion of debt. As governor of Florida, we cut taxes 100 times, and we paid off a third of our state debt. We have to think that way here. How can we grow this economy, reduce the cost for Americans, not increase the cost of Americans? These bad type of policies will ruin our economy and the shot at the American dream, which we all believe in. But I'm going to fight every day to get government out of the way and make sure that doesn't happen. I yield the floor.